Hi there and welcome to my new video. It's been a little while. I've been on tour and I've been busy in the studio mixing and doing all sorts of stuff. Way too much fun and I haven't had time to do a video, so please forgive me that. But first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for the amazing comments that are coming through on the previous Valeton videos. I've just had some lovely heart-wrenching comments, really, like how much people are enjoying my songs as well. So thank you so much. It means so much to me and I'm glad you like these videos. So today is one I've been wanting to do for a while. I've managed to finally get hold of a IK Multimedia Tonex and also a BOSS IR2. So we're going to put those through their paces, but we're going to do a bit of a shootout between my trusty Valeton GP200 and my old Kemper that I've had for donkey's years. Been all around the world with me, that one has. So it's going to be interesting to see what these two bring to the party. Now, this is not a scientific review. I've basically done a dirty sound on all of these devices. I may do a clean or bluesy or crunchy one in the future, who knows? But for now, I've chosen to do a dirty sound. These are all going to be slightly different, okay? So whereas the Valeton, the BOSS and the Tonex do have Soldano emulations, I haven't got a profile for the Kemper. So on the Kemper I've just done a cranked up Marshall, which is essentially what a Soldano amp is. So I haven't even really tried to tweak them to sound similar. It's just that Kemper is a sound I've recorded with many times in the past. I'm always recording with the Soldano sound on the GP200. Tonex, great. The BOSS, you know, they're all fantastic, okay? But one thing I do want to warn you about is your ear will get used to a certain sound. If you listen to a sound for any length of time, your ear kind of gets used to it. And if I flip to another one, you may think, oh, I don't like that one. It may be perfectly good, but it's just that your ears got used to the previous sound. But nevertheless, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a song, one of my songs, funnily enough, and I'm going to record a heavy rhythm guitar. But what I wanted to do, I didn't want to do 4 different takes to go with the 4 different amp emulations. So I had to devise a way that I could play one guitar and feed 4 separate amps. So this is why we have such a weird looking setup here. So just to let you know what's happening, I've got my guitar coming into this volume pedal. Now the volume pedal has a standard output and it's feeding this pedal here called a slicer. This actually makes funny effects, don't worry, I'm not actually using the effect at all, it's on bypass. I've also got a tuner out, so this output feeds a tuner, but now this one is feeding I've got this the wrong way around. The main output is feeding the Valeton. Then this tuner output is going into the slicer pedal. Now what the slicer pedal does is one side of the output is coming into this super shifter, which is again on bypass, allowing one side to feed the Tonex, and then out of the super shifter, one side is feeding the BOSS and one side is feeding the Kemper. Now, you don't have to worry about any of this. It's just in case you wondered why I had such a bizarre setup. It means that I can just do one take of guitars and all that articulation will be identical because I'm doing one guitar take, but it's feeding 4 separate amplifiers. Now, not unusually to record a hard rock song, I'm going to do a left-hand guitar and I'm going to do a right-hand guitar. And when I play the video of the song back, I'll be flipping between each of these sounds, but they will be there'll be a left-hand guitar and a right-hand guitar, but they will both be from the GP200 or both from the BOSS, both from the Tonex or both from the Kemper. I hope that makes sense, and that's why I've got this really weird setup in front of me, but that's what's going on there. So, first of all, let's talk about the software. I love the Valeton software, and if you want my opinion, between all these systems, the Valeton software is absolutely the best. It's intuitive. I can call up any parameter. I can change the cab really easily by clicking on that. I can change the amp and the noise reduction and any of these effects. It's just so easy to use. I can call up another one really, really easily. The Kemper rig manager is very, very good. But I would say for a new person, it might be a little bit overkill. You might find it a little bit daunting. It does work, but it's not as easy to understand as the Valeton GP200. The Tonex, I think, is okay. It's not great. And it has to be said a few times, this has lost connection on me. Now, I'm perfectly prepared to say that it might be a dodgy USB cable on my part. It could be. But it'd be interesting to see, is that something? Now, all of these, by the way, even if I slightly move the Valeton, if I slightly dislodge the USB cable, that can disconnect. But I find, generally speaking, the Valeton, if I switch it on for a session in the morning, it just keeps going and doesn't lose signal at all. Same with the Kemper, but I have found that the Tonex has lost connection with the computer. Not a big deal, but there it is. Also, I don't find the Tonex software to be able to tweak the amplifier as much as I'd like to. Yes, I can use it on the actual system itself, and it seems that that's the way to do it. I haven't read the bloody manual, of course, so this is probably user error. Sorry about that, typical guy. It seems that you call up an amp sound by clicking here, but you don't have, like you do on the Valeton, you don't have scope to change settings here. Which will be reflected on the hardware unit. It seems that with the Tonex, you have to call up a preset and then change it on the actual unit, which is fine. You know, we're used to doing that on amplifiers. But I just find that when I get into it, once I'm working on a mouse, like on the Valeton or the rig manager for Kemper, I'd like to stay in mouse mode, really, once I've gone over there. So I do find, out of all of them, the Valeton is the best, and to my knowledge, the BOSS doesn't even have any software. So that is just like a typical BOSS pedal where you'll just twiddle the knobs to taste. So looking at form factor, the Valeton is great if you're wanting an all-in-one. It's got the amps, it's got the effects. You can even just use the effects if you want to feed your traditional analog amplifier. This little baby here is amazing to fit in a small little effects rig, you know, a little flyaway if you're just doing some gigs and you just want a small little pedal board. I can absolutely see myself using this. It may not be the greatest sound of all of them, but perfectly usable. And I think a way I might use this would be to run the amp in clean mode, use a Fender amp, something like that, and put my preferred BOSS blues driver, which is Keeley modified, in front of it. Maybe a reverb and a delay, maybe have 4 pedals and a little pedal board, and that'd be good to go. The Tonex as well seems to be perfectly good. You've got 3 different settings that you can stomp on. You can program those accordingly. Yes, you can change the bank and all the rest of it. I'm not that well up on this, so I'm not going to get into all of that. But for ease, this has got 3 sounds that are very easily stompable. Then you've got to, I think, click and hold to change the bank and all that stuff for playing live. This has got effects in. I don't know how good they are. I've not looked into it. But I love IK Multimedia stuff. One thing I must mention about the Tonex, right, this is really strange. I got the software about 6 months ago. You've got a software version of this. This is the hardware version. The software version, I tried it and I absolutely hated it. Hated it with a passion. It was virtually unusable for me. It had that very nasally kind of snotty, in a horrible way, sound that was reminiscent of early amp emulation plugins from 20 odd years ago, like Amp Farm and all that stuff, Line 6. I hated all that stuff. And the software for the Tonex, I found it very similar. Now, I was assured that the software and the hardware version should sound identical, but I'm sure they don't. Having just got this hardware version of the Tonex, it seems to sound okay. In fact, it's pretty good. And the software version just sounded horrible, unusable as far as I'm concerned. And also, I don't like software versions of amps because of buffer settings. Now, I know some of you are new to playing the guitar, so I'm not going to get too involved in that. But basically, if we're monitoring through Pro Tools to record a song, something like that, buffer sizes can be a real issue for playing guitar. So I'm not going to confuse anyone because you might not know what I'm talking about with that. But anyway, I don't like software amps. These are all hardware, so that's great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip over to Pro Tools, and this is a song that I wrote many, many years ago. So as you can see, I'm going to be recording onto the Tonex, and I'm going to be recording onto the BOSS, the GP200 and the Kemper. And after I've done a pass, they're all recording at the same time, I'm going to do another pass so that I can then pan the guitars hard left and hard right, because that's what we do in hard rock, just to get a big old sound. So I'm now going to do some playing. As ever, it's one of my songs. And as ever, I'm going to try and play from the start of the song to the end of the song. So if I make a gaff, if I make a balls up, I'm going to leave it in. This won't be mixed either. I'm not going to put any EQ on the sounds afterward. This is exactly how they sound out of the units themselves. So let's see what happens. Okay, I am monitoring myself off of the... What am I monitoring off? I'm monitoring off... It seems to be the Kemper at the moment. Okay, I'll go with that. Cool. So back to Pro Tools. And here we go.
I just don't know
Cool. Okay, so perhaps wasn't the tightest. Oop, let's turn that off. Perhaps wasn't the tightest I've ever played, but it's just to get the idea across. So again, what you're going to hear, it's not mixed. The sounds are exactly as they're coming off the units. This would not be a finished version. I'd spend a little bit more time doing that, but it's just to give you an idea. Let me just have a little playback. I'm just going to leave the cameras running as I have a little listen. To begin with, I'm going to listen to the Tonex. Okay, and let's listen to the BOSS. Okay, let's have a listen to the GP200. Okay, and finally the trusty old Kemper. So it's now the next day. I wanted to sleep on this one to formulate my thoughts. Because as you know, I love the Valeton. And I'm going to give you the results of my shootout. For this particular song, it's actually amazed me because I like the Kemper the most. It's just got a classier sound for me. I have to say it as I see it. And again, I want to say on this particular song, it could be, if you're going for a more metal sound, that you might want to use the BOSS, the IR2, because that had a more metally tone. So I think what this boils down to is, in an ideal world, we would, in the old days, have a wall full of different traditional amplifiers that we could choose from. And I think it might be the same with digital amps, actually, because I'm scoring them for this particular song. They're all usable, completely usable. My favourite was the Kemper. My second favourite was the Tonex. My third favourite was the Valeton. And my least favourite was the BOSS. But again, the fact I've put the Valeton and the BOSS towards the bottom, for certain things, I would absolutely use the BOSS. If I was doing a metal track, I would put that straight on the system and record with that. For this classic hard rock tone, I wanted something with some balls to it, some meat in the bottom end, and the Kemper. And it really surprised me because that's kind of why I wanted to sleep on it, because I was going to just say that the Kemper kind of had its day. But I think it's still got more life left in it, you know. And that's been really interesting to me because since I got the Valeton, I keep saying it on all my videos, this is one of the first times I've actually used the Kemper in anger, and I liked it. So I think, yeah, it was a really interesting experiment. For those of you that are interested in getting the Valeton, I would still say get it, because what it brings is incredible effects. You can just use the effects without the digital amp side of things, and it will be money well spent. If you're even an intermediate or a professional player, the Valeton is absolutely stunningly brilliant, full live or in the studio. And there are doubtless going to be sounds, if I put some clean sounds up, where the Valeton will beat the Kemper and the Tonex may beat everything else for something else. And it's really made me think, actually, that just as I've in the past had quite a large amp collection, I've sold a lot of my traditional amps now, although there's a few pieces that I can't bear to part with. I've got a Marshall head that used to belong to AC/DC. I've got a Vox AC50, a really nice Fender custom shop combo. I've got all sorts of stuff. I used to have walls full of amps, but no longer. And I'm starting to wonder whether there's a similar thing with digital amps. That there's no one size fits all. And that's been the takeaway for me. I found that quite interesting. I really was not expecting the Kemper to be the best for this song. I thought it was going to be the worst. So there you go, there you have it. So until the next one, thanks for watching.